So on the Senate side, the state budget will be negotiated by the Senate Finance Committee. They'll be pulling some pretty long hours in the next couple of weeks. And that includes State Senator Liz Krueger, the chair of the Finance Committee. We spoke this week about where the budget stands and what's ahead. Senator Krueger, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
Happy to be.
So we're talking about the state budget. New York is in a better financial condition this year than in years past because of federal relief during the pandemic and also better than expected tax receipts. I'm wondering, does that make it easier to negotiate a budget because we have all of this money, or does it make it harder because we have all of this money and everybody wants a piece of it?
You know, I think it actually makes it a little harder because people recognize that there are some funds, and so they definitely want to fight over them because everybody has their own priorities. They also recognize we have a governor, a new governor. Her name's Kathy Hochul, and she actually seems to believe that her job is to work with the legislature and the people of New York State to come up with the best outcome, as opposed to our previous governor, who thought he was the only one in the whole world who knew anything, and everyone else was just an irritant to him. And that truly was played out during the budget process. So, look, we don't all agree with Kathy's budget, and the legislature, both houses, made it clear in their one houses that we're not identical to her agenda, although on most things we really do agree, and we want to negotiate out what we think is the best answers for 20 million New Yorkers. And I feel like we're not going to have a problem getting to that goal line, but there are definitely more participants showing up saying, let me explain why we've been starved to death, we've been underfunded for so long, and we need to do something about it, that now that New York State is in a far, far better economic position than it has been for quite a few years.
You know, there is a minor disagreement, and I don't necessarily think it's a big thing. So the governor has put policy in her budget. It's a longstanding practice in Albany for the governor to do that. The legislature mostly stripped that policy out in their one-house budgets. And I don't think that that's necessarily unusual, but do you see this changing this year? Do you see policy staying out of the budget, or do you think there's an opening for it to wiggle back in?
Well, I don't think either house pulled out all policy.
Right.
Because many policies have a fiscal attached to them. So I think in general, it is the philosophy of both houses of the legislature that if there are policy changes that impact significantly fiscal expenditures or revenues, that's the kind of policy that needs to be in the budget. But if they are just policy positions that don't actually have a fiscal impact, those should be done separately as freestanding statutes through the two houses, then voted, vetoed, or signed by the governor. And I think both houses continue our belief that that's the appropriate set of standards to be used for dealing with state law and the budget, because they're not always hand in hand.
You know, we are also living at a time right now where inflation is going up. The cost of gasoline is obviously very high. How important is it in this budget to provide relief to people in New York that are really struggling to meet their costs right now because of these higher prices everywhere?
So speaking for the Senate, we worked very hard to make sure that we were following through on speeding up the middle income tax cuts that had already been passed, but were scheduled to come in over a slower number of years. So we in our one house recommended moving those up to continue this year. We supported the governor's plan around a STAR expansion, although we changed the numbers a bit to reflect more on the lower income homeowners than in her plan, but still the same amount of money going out. We did not increase taxes. We did recommend a sales tax holiday on a portion of the gas sales tax at the state level, and authority for the counties to do the same at their level. Remember, most sales tax is half state, half local. But we recognize that right now, thanks to Putin and Russia, we're seeing a skyrocketing in the cost of gasoline, and that we need to confront, at least at some level for a while, is there something we can do to help mitigate the very rapidly growing costs of gasoline?
So over the next 2 weeks, things will fall out of the budget. That happens every year. I don't know if you can talk about specific items necessarily, but is there anything that's a top priority that you really want to keep in the budget in terms of the Senate side? Something that you really don't want to see fall out before a final budget deal is passed?
I would say that two of the big issues my conference wants to fight for is a true investment in heading towards universal childcare, both with universal pre-K statewide and with universal availability of childcare on a sliding scale um, for below the age of 4 before you hit the pre-K years. And so we have a very robust proposal we have put in. Maybe we'll need to roll it in over a longer period of time than we've proposed so that it is not a giant cost in the first year. But people are desperate to see this because families can't go back to work.
Right.
People can't go back to work, even though they need the income from both, if there's no place that they can be assured that their young children are being cared for carefully and safely. It's just a reality that we need to confront in the 21st century. And at the other end of the age spectrum, we have a crisis in home care services. We have people who are being released from hospitals, and yet the hospitals are reporting there are no home care workers to be hired, and we need transformatively to be assured that there is going to be an adequate workforce to deal with these issues, to take care of us and our parents and our grandparents. And when you were paying people a higher minimum wage to flip burgers, then you were paying people to care for your most vulnerable older adults and disabled adults, something's wrong with your priorities. And so we are hoping that we can also make a serious dent in the underfunding of the home care healthcare universe.
All right, there's a lot to look at in the next couple of weeks, ending with a $216 billion or more budget. So we'll keep an eye on it. Senator Liz Krueger, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.